Hello, and welcome back to the second episode of the Nostalgic Futurist podcast. Today, I'm going to continue talking about my plans for reimagining Tomorrowland in Disneyland Anaheim. So let's jump right in with the Submarine Lagoon. Now, the Submarine Lagoon opened back in 1959 along with the monorail and the Matterhorn. The problem with the Submarine Lagoon, though, is it's basically a gigantic swimming pool, but with way more problems. Usually when it has its annual refurb, it either has to get completely drained to fill in holes that have leaked over time, or they have to completely replace props that have faded in the sunlight or broken because they've been underwater for so long. It's always been a big problem. And that's why back in 1998, when it was starting to lose popularity and they were redoing Tomorrowland, they decided to take it out. Now, the problem with that is you can't really take the water out without going through massive construction, so they basically just stopped running the submarines, which had had many problems in themselves. Now, they tried to revitalize the Submarine Lagoon back in 2007 with the opening of the Finding Nemo Submarine Voyage. However, it was very popular in the first few years. I remember it being like swamped, and then I was like, I'm never going to get to ride this ride because there's too many people. But in the last decade, it's not as popular anymore. I rarely see a line that's more than 25 to 30 minutes, even on a busy day. And recently I went back in and I rerode the ride because I normally just don't, because it's just not on my docket of things to do. And I actually found that I enjoyed it so much more than I remembered. I had so much fun getting to be underwater and looking at the cool little vignettes that they have going, and then going into this mysterious dark cave. The only thing I wish that would really change about the Finding Nemo subs is finding a way to make the Musion effect of the videos of the fish underwater to be even better, since we have better technology now. I think they're a great ride. I understand the financial cost of having to refurb it so much, but I feel like Finding Nemo is such a fun IP that people still really enjoy that maybe there's a way we could tie it into the Marine Life Institute from Finding Dory and have it be like an exhibit from the Marine Life Institute. And maybe we find a way to see, the beluga whale, or getting to see a whale shark, some larger animals, and maybe play off, Becky the bird and having the seals on the rock. I don't know. Something to update it, but also make it feel like the real Monterey Bay Aquarium, but it's the Marine Life Institute. All right, now on to the centerpiece of Tomorrowland, and by far my favorite ride, Space Mountain, specifically the one in Disneyland. Now, the problem with Space Mountain is it is the main draw of this land, and it is currently set in a very kind of like 1980s, 1990s arcade style when you get to the interior. And I think that if we roll it on back to what we think of as a sleek 1960s kind of futuristic googie style, we could update the coaster cars so that they feel like we're going on a 1960s tourist journey into space. I think that the interior of the ride is so awesome, and I understand that it's just projectors and disco balls and lights in a dark room, but there's something about it being so just vintage that it still feels so awesome. I mean, my brain just feels like it's in space when I'm there. I think it'd be great also, like, to keep that essence of the ride, update the interior look. That weird spaceship that floats above the loading area is just, what is it? It's just weird. I think if we could update the interiors, maybe those fake windows we walk past in the queue could actually be moving. So we feel like more like something along the lines of Rise of the Resistance, with that big window that's open behind those stormtroopers where we can see space and movement. I think if we just update the queue, update the coasters, and leave the music, please. Michael Giacchino's score for that ride is utter perfection. I'm so upset whenever they do Hyperspace Mountain or Ghost Galaxy because I have to wear headphones so that I can hear the actual ride like through my headphones and not hear the other tracks that I don't care about. I just want the clean Michael Giacchino score to stay the music on Space Mountain forever. I just don't want to touch it too much because the ride is so perfect as it is, and I'm scared for the future of this ride. Star Tours is who we can thank for revitalizing Tomorrowland back in the 80s. The idea for Star Tours was something bred between Michael Eisner and George Lucas and Michael Eisner's son. This ride takes you on an adventure through the Star Wars galaxy as a tourist, which is a great and fun idea. But the problem with Star Tours I see now, and a lot of people have brought up, is how does that work with Galaxy's Edge? Galaxy's Edge is completely on the other side of the park and doesn't really fit into the same kind of canon of what time period it is, because Galaxy's Edge takes place in the new trilogy and Star Tours is mainly back in the original trilogy. However, they have updated scenes over time to include planets like Jakku and stuff to bring in the new influence of Galaxy's Edge and the new trilogy. The problem is Star Tours is just such a good ride and so many people love it. It's just now, why is it in Tomorrowland? And I don't really know the answer to this question. I think we should keep it. I think it's such a great ride. And I think retheming it would kind of make it blah. I think it could, of course, always use more updates, but its most recent update is great. And I think that as of right now, Star Tours can just stay as it is. Buzz Lightyear's Astro Blasters has always been a little bit difficult for me. I think Toy Story Mania across the way in DCA is a much better ride. Astro Blasters to me really just feels like I'm at Laser Quest. And I don't know why I would go to Disneyland to go to kind of a lame 1990s Laser Quest. I think it would be really cool to take Astro Blasters out and replace it with a new version of Adventures Through Inner Space. If we could convince people a long time ago that they were actually getting shrunk down to go on the ride, imagine what we could do with today's technology. I think it'd be cool to bring on something like that. Give us some references to the old ride, but make it so that it feels like Rise of the Resistance, where the technology is so beyond what we thought was possible that we're sitting there going, oh my gosh, did I actually shrink? Am I actually shrunken? What's going on? I think this would be a great, Imagineering question to try and work and figure out, and could be really fun to bring back something old and fix it up for today. All right, now to cover all the little extra things that aren't necessarily attractions. I think that the new design proposed for the entrance to Tomorrowland looks really cool. It brings back the Googie style. It brings back a lot of the old things that made the 1967 revamp of Tomorrowland so cool. They've even started with putting in new fountain looking, well, they're not fountains anymore. They put plants in them, but they are next to Star Tours and Astro Blasters, and they've repainted those walls so that they have this iridescent shimmer. And it just really revitalized those areas, and I can't wait to see what happens with the rest of the front entrance. Now, the only thing I would really change about their design art for this is, let's get rid of the Astro Orbiter. Can we just toss it? Let's just get rid of it, and let's get a new type of spinner rocket ride and put it back on top of the People Mover station, please, and thank you. Now, for the restaurants in Tomorrowland, they're just a little bit tired. Now, the Tomorrowland Terrace, I have to say, I love the outer space mural that's on the ceiling above the dining area. It's so beautiful to look at, and it's just mesmerizing. So why isn't the rest of the restaurant not that great? Now, I get it. It's an outdoor, serve yourself kind of a thing. And so, you're going up to a window and then you're going to go sit. But can we at least make it feel like it's a destination, like it's a spaceport, or, it's a tourist stop after you got off of Star Tours? I don't know. Something to bring in the life of that mural and then make it feel like the restaurant kind of follows suit with it. I think changing out the design of the tables and chairs might also help. They look a little tired. I also think that the Tomorrowland stage there is such great examples of Googie architecture, and it's so cool that it comes out of the ground and you don't expect it, and it ties it into Space Mountain, so maybe there's another design element in there. The other restaurant is Pizza Port, and I love the idea of making it like the pizza place from Toy Story. What a genius way to bring the IP in, and it even ties in with the rocket. It's so perfect. But oh boy, when you walk up to the area to get on Space Mountain and you walk past that seating area that I swear was like taken out of a 1980s mall. It's so bad. It either needs to be like enclosed and updated and really make it look like the Toy Story pizza place, or it just needs to go. And I didn't talk about this on the Space Mountain section because I was just kind of including it in this, but the Tomorrowland Theater, which is also underneath the Space Mountain loading platform where the helicopter pad is, I think it's time to open that back up so that if you're in the Space Mountain line, you can look down and you can see the people watching live shows that are like super awesome while you wait in line, and bring the escalators back. Like, let's go full back vintage Space Mountain. And then we don't need that whole walking area where the creepy, ugly 1980s tables are. And then it would all be fixed. Thank you for joining me once again on the Nostalgic Futurist podcast. Today we finished covering all of my plans for reimagining Tomorrowland. Oh my gosh, did I talk about the monorail? No, because it's perfection. I think if we could just stop putting those wraps on it with like Mickey's face and like made it look like cars and just stop it. Just leave the monorail in her glorious beauty. She's absolutely gorgeous. Leave her alone. I hope you will join me again next week as I talk about the effects rides have on us. From motion sickness to our deepest fears, I want to cover it all as someone who's afraid of dropping from high heights. Thank you, and I'll see you next week.